everybody, and welcome to this episode of Retro Horror School Talks. I am Brandy, otherwise known as the Terrific Lady, and today we have what is called an office hours theory style episode, but we're also doing something called a horror lab deep dive, which basically means that we are taking one horror concept and we're poking at it with a bunch of pins and our fingers from a bunch of different angles. So today's topic is the final girl. So why she still matters, why the trope keeps evolving, and why we all have some pretty intense opinions about it. And I am joined by a repeat guest. She was on last year, and now she is back this year. Shane, also known as urfavfinalgrrl on Instagram. So hello, welcome back.
Hello, I'm so excited to be back. And as you can tell by my username, this is one of my favorite subjects. So I'm so excited to get into it.
Yep, so we've got your fave final girl talking about final girls.
That's right.
It was meant to be.
It was.
Before we jump in, just what I want to know is just very briefly in one sentence, how did horror become your thing? So what about horror makes you go, ooh?
So my favorite intro to horror was the movie Poltergeist. That was the movie I sat down and watched that on the floor in front of my big old rickety TV when I was a kid. And I was just glued to it. And so that was my big intro. That is why I've always loved horror. It's not, I got into scarier horror later. It's definitely a gateway horror movie, but there's just so much in it that drew me into the genre. And I would have to say also that Carol Ann and the mom Diane, they're pretty excellent final girls, if you ask me.
Ooh, I hope that answer or those final girls come up later on in the episode. Maybe we shall see. So, all right, class is now officially in session. So I'm going to just start off with the easiest, simplest question first. When you hear the phrase final girl, what does that mean to you?
A final girl to me, I guess put pretty simply, is she is the babe that survives, right? She is your female protagonist that gets through. But I do feel like final girls are a lot more than that. I feel like final girls are not just survivors, but they go through some kind of transformation in the movies that we watch. And I think that's a part of the final girl trope that isn't talked about enough. It's not just they make it, it's that they grow and change and evolve in some way throughout the story. So I would say that's a final girl to me.
So it's more than, so you say it's more than just, oh, she survives. Do you think that she's defined by, say, maybe confrontation, maybe the enemy or enemies that she encounters, or just any kind of specific point of view?
I do feel like they're more than survival. I feel like a final girl works because she is somebody you get to know, you learn to like, and then you watch her kind of work through not just the scary situation she's in, but you watch her typically, especially with more modern horror, work through whatever internal struggle she's got going on also. And so I definitely think it's more than just survival. I think it's a lot of the time it's grit. It's just spite. Sometimes I think final girls make it sometimes just out of their own cleverness. I mean, there's so much more to them than just walking away alive, which a lot of the time is a feat in itself, but yeah, they're more than that.
And I always want to cheer for them whenever they're on screen, whether I'm seeing them in the movie theaters or whether I'm just popping in one of my DVDs. I'm just yes, ooh, I connect with final girls a lot. What do you think it is about final girls that make people want to just latch onto them so hard and just hold them close and be they're awesome. This is great.
Well, I have a couple of reasons. First, they're usually pretty hot. I think that's like the number one thing that draws people in. They're usually an attractive female, a lot of the time blonde, and that like draws your audience in immediately, right? They're pretty, they're likable. But I think there's two main reasons why we like really latch onto them and want to hold on to them like that. Number one, I think usually there's something in this final girl that we relate to, whether she's a girl in high school dealing with like boy troubles, or somebody like more modern like Sydney Prescott who's like grieving her mom. There's usually something in there that we see in ourselves, and that kind of makes us want to root for them. And number two, I think they're kind of connected. I think because we see something in them, something that we might struggle with ourselves, or something that we're dealing with in our private lives that we don't talk about, we see them not just facing down whatever or whoever is trying to kill them. We see them really not just facing that, but facing their own struggles. Because a lot of the time, you know, those underlying themes are kind of framed like they have to figure this part of themselves out before they can really defeat the monster or the bad guy or whatever. And watching them do that and succeed, I think brings us some hope. It brings us some kind of like maybe courage. It gives us this like feeling of like, well, if they can do it, maybe we can get by too, you know?
I really like that. And in a sense too, the killer up on screen, it could be just quite literally, yes, this is a killer with a mask or a machete or a butcher knife or whatever weapon they have just coming after this final girl. But it could also stand in as a metaphor, like you mentioned, just like struggles. The killer could stand in as a metaphor for whatever trauma or grief or just problems that are going on just in our lives. So I feel that anybody could relate to a final girl in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, now I have to ask, what is one final girl moment that lives in your head rent free? So basically, like what you think is the gold standard of all final girl moments.
The gold standard moment for me, which I think probably because I was so young when I watched it, it kind of like sealed itself into my head, was in Friday the 13th, part 2, Jenny faces down with Jason. And what I like about her is that she wasn't some like kind of ditzy blonde. She wasn't just running around screaming. She was really empathetic toward Jason throughout the movie when people were talking about him at the bar, and she felt kind of sorry for him, you could tell. But she still didn't let that prevent her from saving herself in the end. And not only that, but she used that understanding of Jason and the empathy that she had for him against him in the end. And she put herself in a really uncomfortable situation too by wearing that like nasty old sweater and pretending to be his mom. Like that whole thing is so icky. But I think her just like having the courage, like having this idea of, well, maybe if I pretend, I might get him to at least stop for a minute, and it'll give me a chance to do what I need to do. And it worked. And so that's like really like that to me is like, she's smart, but she's not without empathy, but she's smart enough to know that like she's not going to make it out of here if she doesn't use her brain and like do something. So I always thought that was really special.
But I love that moment. Like I saw Friday the 13th part 2 that later on in life, and that's one moment that always stuck out in my mind. It's just like I'd never seen a final girl like at up to that point like defeat a monster with like trickery and psychology, like Hannibal lecturing him just like in a way.
Yeah, it was very smart. And it wasn't just like analytical. She was like using her understanding of psychology to do it, which is like a special skill set. So it's very cool.
Yeah, so psychology classes in college, they matter, because if you're ever coming up against a killer, you can put on his mom's sweater and trick him.
Absolutely. Take that class.
Now what we're going to be doing is something called a decade hop, but we're going to be keeping it fun. Like we don't have to be exact on the years. So you don't have to know, okay, in exactly 1973, this final girl was in this movie. We're just thinking more eras. So I'm going to name a specific era. You're going to pick one final girl that fits the era, and you're going to tell me why she works, what makes her survival feel different? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we're going to start with the 70s. So what's called the proto-slasher era. So slashers weren't quite slashers yet. They didn't really have that name or gain that popularity until the 80s. So 70s slashers, proto-slashers. Who's your pick for a final girl that stands out from the 70s?
So my final girl of the 70s was really easy for me to pick because it's one of my favorite horror movies. It's Sally from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Ooh.
Oh, she's incredible. I don't think a lot of people see a lot of depth in what she goes through, but I see it. And I know that she's an incredible final girl. I mean, she is just like kind of thrust into this like fucked up mockery of a nuclear family, and she survives through like just like pure grit and desperation. She does everything she can to get out of there, and that kind of survival instinct, I mean, when she was at that dinner table, like you can see the terror on her face. Like the actress so good in like portraying just like that sense of dread and terror that she had, and to just even move past that level of fear and try to find a way to escape. I mean, it's just incredible. The performance is incredible. She's amazing. And when she finally does get away, and she's kind of crazy in the back of that truck, and who can honestly really blame her? She is like thoroughly changed from that experience. But I mean, just as a final girl, if I had to pick a decade, it's the 70s. She's the one. Absolutely.
Yeah, Sally is a good pick. She had to grow on me as a final girl. Because I used to approach Texas Chainsaw Massacre almost surface level. I'm just like, oh, why is she screaming all the time? But then when I watched it again, and then I watched it again, just like, oh, well, okay. If I was in that situation, I would probably be screaming my head off too and going nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. It is like, and if you see any kind of, I don't know if you've seen any kind of behind the scenes stuff. I know there's a new documentary out. I haven't watched it yet. It's like at the top of my list though. But you know, like that dinner scene, the situation they were filming in was intense. It was like over 100 degrees in there. They had to shoot it for like hours and hours. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it was worth it because it's like such a stellar performance, but yeah, no, I watched it when I was really too young, probably. So I had to rewatch it when I was like going to be like less scared as an adult. And yeah, I'm glad I did because she's amazing.
I think one of the most common things among us horror fans is that we all watch our first or kind of our first-ish horror movies a little too young. Like we shouldn't have been watching this kind of stuff, but we did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, whether we turned out the better for it, just I guess it's a matter up for debate. I think we did.
I think we're fine. We're fine.
Now we're going with the 80s. So we got the slasher boom in the 80s, bigger body counts and bigger vibes. Who is your final girl pick of the 80s?
There are so many cool final girls in the 80s from all the slashers. And I mean, I love all of them. I can't find a final girl that I can't find something to like about them. But I kind of moved away from the slashers for my answer. I picked Ripley from Aliens for my final girl because she's that's one of the movies I watched when I was really young, and I just thought she was so fucking cool. Not only was she just so cool, but she was so smart. And since she was already familiar with the aliens and like this threat that she was facing, she really got to be smart and evaluate and plan and analyze to like fight back. And not only was she doing that, but she was trying to protect a little girl while she's doing that. And so I just think she shows so much like endurance and tenacity, and she's just generally kind of badass. So that was my pick.
Yeah, I love too is how courage doesn't mean that you're just this person with a bunch of guns and bombs, stuff like that. Well, she had guns and she had bombs, but she was terrified, rightfully so, and she went there anyway. She helped them out anyway. She protected that little girl anyway, which is like courage is not the absence of fear. It's being fucking terrified and doing it anyway.
Yeah, doing it anyway. That's absolutely what courage is. And she like really embodies that for
Yeah.
me.
Yes, that's excellent pick for the 80s. Now we're going to be moving on to the 90s. So we have the 90s where horror is starting to get a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more, not self-conscious. That's not the right word. I don't know what word I'm thinking of. So I'll skip that. So horror is getting a little bit more self-aware in the 90s. Who is the final girl that you think embodies the 90s?
The 90s were very much the new era of like meta horror, and also there was a much wider audience for horror, and I can't think of anybody else who represents that better than Sidney Prescott. I mean, Scream changed horror forever. Yeah. And I think Sidney was a special kind of final girl because she's this like kind of like wealthy upper middle class kid who is likable and friendly, and she has like, you know, good grades. She's like the good girl next door, but she's also kind of like witty and like really smart with the way that she talks to people, and she's also facing this like really difficult grief over her mom during this movie. She brought so much to the final girl like trope that wasn't there before. She fleshed it out.
Yes, you can't like think of the 90s without thinking of Scream. Yes. Of course, it's more like to the 90s than Scream, but yeah, you cannot argue that it changed the genre. And Sidney Prescott, yeah, I would agree. As a final girl, she almost kind of subverted it, because in the 70s and the 80s, it had to be like, oh, the final girl also had to be innocent, and she had to be pure and not sleep around or sleep like with her boyfriend or boys. But Sidney Prescott was able to do that, sleep with her boyfriend, who admittedly ended up being a psycho, and she lived. So she subverted that trope.
Oh, definitely. That's why we love her.
Now, I like to talk about the 2000s and the 2010s too, but for this question, I lumped both of those eras together. So the modern eras of horror, the 2000s into the 2010s. Who is your final girl pick for that era?
I had a lot of people that could potentially be on that list because there's so many great final girls of this like time frame. It's like, it feels really impossible to pick. So I kind of went meta with my answer. I decided to choose Max from The Final Girls. I don't think that movie gets enough love, but she really embodies a final girl while fully recognizing within the movie that she's a final girl. I love that movie so much because it's so layered and interesting and funny. But I really do think like if you look at the 2010s kind of era, she's like a perfect example of that, even if it's self-aware.
I'm so glad you mentioned that movie. That is such a great movie, and I feel that it also just like maybe it doesn't get enough love because not a lot of people know about it. So this is our recommendation. Go find that movie and watch it.
Yes, I tell everybody because I feel like nobody watched it, and it's just like it really is like so worth the time to like sit down and watch it. Like I rewatch it on the regular. It's kind of like a comfort movie watch for me now because I just loved it so much because it has the like cozy comfort of like the 80s slasher while having like modern horror, modern comedy in it, and it's just like all smushed together to make like a really sweet, heartfelt story. I just loved it. I can't recommend it enough. And she's such a great character too. With previous decades final girls, like with Sydney, she has grief and there's different like underlying things that they're going through that are mentioned. But Max, the whole story is basically like she's not going to survive if she doesn't learn to let go of her mother. And so like it just like kind of took that underlying thing and smashed it together with the actual killer. Like, you're not going to make it if you don't learn how to move on. I just thought that was like so cool and modern of them to like make something like that.
It is. It deserves all the love.
It does, for sure.
So we've basically mapped the evolution of the final girl through just all of your favorite final girl picks. And to me, I think that's way more fun than just like verbatim saying a textbook timeline.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're going to go to something called a little bit of a debate corner. So what you're going to do is I'm going to be asking you some questions. I mean, I've been asking you questions throughout this entire episode, but I'm going to be asking you some more questions. And you're just going to say what kind of pops in your head. And yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
I feel like I need a buzzer.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
What is the... All right. So the final girl trope, do you think that it is an empowering trope, or do you sometimes feel that it's more of a moral kind of test?
I do think it's empowering. I do feel like some horror movies are hard to watch because this like young female protagonist goes through such horrific stuff, right? Sometimes it's tough for me to see somebody being tortured or slashed or whatever these girls go through in these movies, right? And that's almost like a moral test for me because it's like, I know that this story is probably going to give me something good and she's going to make it and it's going to be fine. But it's hard to watch sometimes because so many are so extreme. Like I do have limits as a horror watcher. But as far as like the final girl trope, I do feel like it's empowering for like a million reasons. Just watching a girl, whatever iteration of a final girl you're seeing, right? It could be the like sweet ditzy girl or the girl next door or whatever. Like no matter who that girl is, just seeing her like build up the courage and learn how to fight back and make it to the end, I think is empowering. And I do think maybe that's why I turned out okay as a horror watcher that watched when I was far too young, because look at what I was watching. Ellen Ripley, I mean, talk about a really good person to look up to, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of them better, especially just like growing up in the 80s. Let me ask you this. Do you think that horror movies in general, when it comes to final girls, do you think that some of those movies reward a certain kind of acceptable, I put it in quotes, acceptable girl?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 80s slashers are basically based on horny teenagers getting murdered. I mean, so it's always been like the acceptable nice girl that survives. And that's fine. But I do like that more recently we're getting more morally ambiguous final girls. We're getting girls who are complicated, who make mistakes, and who are able to like not always be perfect and pretty, and they still are able to make it to the end. I think that kind of storytelling is important for sure, because it definitely sways in the opposite direction. They have to be perfect in order to survive. And I don't think that's fair. I think most women are fucked up in their own way. And that doesn't mean we don't deserve to make it to the end.
Right. I think of the first example that pops in my head is kind of, I don't know if I'd call her morally ambiguous, but she definitely has issues, is Fede Alvarez's version of The Evil Dead, which came out in 2013. And that final girl, Mia, like she was a drug addict. She had struggles. I don't remember if she lost one or both of her parents, but that also having to deal with that and just the effect that the effect of what was happening to her, how it was affecting her brother and her friends, and she was still able to come out on top and be a badass.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like, see, and a lot of people, not necessarily you, but like in general, I do think people look down on people who struggle with addiction or any kind of issues like that. And so that would make her an unacceptable final girl to them. But to me, I think that just adds to the level of why I think she should make it to the end, because a lot of people don't choose the situation that they're in. They don't choose their addiction or whatever. And the fact that she's not only like trying to fight with that, but also survive all of this like crazy demonic shit that's happening is pretty incredible to me. Talk about fucking grit, you know?
Yeah, cutting off her own hand.
Terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah, I had to watch it with, I didn't like really watch it. I had to like cover my eyes like during that and then kind of get when it was over.
Kind of like peek through.
We talked about a lot of Final Girls, but there is a name that comes up a lot. Laurie Strode from John Carpenter's Halloween. A lot of people say that this is the girl that set the template for all Final Girls that came after. Others are, yeah, she is a final girl, but we need to kind of set her aside and start looking beyond her. Where do you land as far as Laurie Strode? Do you think that she set the template for final girls, or is she just one final girl of many of all of them that exist?
I think she's the template. That's where it all really started. But that doesn't necessarily mean she's like in a separate category or better than or worse than other types of final girls. She was like the beginning, right? She was like the first final girl where we really felt like that nice girl survives the serial killer, tries to save the babysitter. She's like the every woman do-gooder, right? And so I do think that's like the trope of the final girl, is the every woman do-gooder. And so she did set the template, but that doesn't take away from the other types of final girls, and it doesn't take away from her that maybe sometimes we like other types better. I really advocate and like want more morally ambiguous final girls, like I said before, but that doesn't take away from Laurie Strode being the final girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you gotta pay respect to one of the OGs.
She deserves her flowers, for real.
She definitely does. Okay. Now I've got some questions I like to call just office hours style questions. You will answer them first, and then I'll come in quickly with my 2 cents after. Do you consider Gail Weathers a final girl?
Yeah.
Oh.
I do. And I'll defend that stance, okay? So she isn't the lead, right? She's not Sidney Prescott. But how many Scream movies have we gotten, and how many times has she fought through all these various ghost faces and made it to the end? But people don't want to categorize her as a final girl because they think she's a bitch. That's like, for me, what makes me want to say even more that she's a final girl, because she is kind of a bitch. She does what she wants. She gets what she wants. She even hurts Dewey a little bit in the process. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that she's not worth surviving until the end. She's not a perfect person, but she definitely deserves to make it.
If you put her in like any movie, like say in the 80s, she probably would have been one of the victims.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the bitchy reporter who sold everybody out and wrote a book. Yeah, no, she would have died like right away. At least, at the very least, in the first sequel, right? She might have survived the first one. First week sequel, she would have been gone for sure. And it's because they don't think she's nice.
Yeah, it's like Mean Girls in the 80s always got axed by the killer, so they didn't make it to the end. Nah.
But I kind of always liked those Mean Girls. I kind of always liked that they weren't the innocent do-gooder, you know? I always thought they were interesting because they all had their reasons for being mean. But yeah, Gail Weathers, final girl, for sure.
Yeah. Who do you feel is the most underrated final girl?
I had a few answers for this, but I am going to swing it back around to the intro. I want to talk about Poltergeist some more, because we've got 2 final girls here, and I think they are underrated because I don't think anybody looks at them like final girls, but they are. We've got Diane and Carol Ann. Hold on, I have to cough. Okay, I do categorize them as final girls because, first of all, Carol Ann, she's like in this terrifying other place, right? And she's like running and she's hiding and she's trying to listen to her parents and like find her way home, right? She makes it. She fought through a lot as a little girl. She doesn't need to do anymore. All she had to do was hide and get home and listen to her parents, right? But Diane, her mom, is definitely a final girl. She was in danger trying to get her little girl back. And not only was she in danger from these spirits and everything, but she tied that rope around herself and threw herself into the other, I don't remember what it was called. It's been a while since I watched it. But she threw herself into this like other dimension that she knew nothing about. She knew it was bad, but she knew that her little girl was there and that she needed to get her back. And if that isn't courage, I don't know what is, because she put herself directly into the mouth of the beast. And she went in and she got her girl and she pulled her out. And I mean, that's pretty incredible. I don't think people classify her as a final girl, but she is.
Yeah, and I was about ready to ask you to sell me and give me one scene, but you already did, and I'm sold. Like,
there it is.
Yep, I am definitely sold. I never thought of her or both of them as final girls, but yeah, I think you sold me.
Let me pat myself on the back a little bit.
Yeah.
I have some hot takes, but I usually have good reasoning for them.
What is a final girl that you didn't like at first, where you're like, I don't know about this, but then she ended up growing on you?
I don't know how to answer this one because I always find something to like in a final girl. I mean, even though I understand the like innocent, you know, sweet girl trope, I like the more ambiguous tropes. There's a lot that like I can find likable in somebody, so it's really hard for me to answer that. There isn't a final girl I can think of where I'm just like, yeah, I didn't like her at first, I guess I like her now. No, I just can't find that. That's like really hard for me to do.
All right, I'd say that's a perfectly acceptable and valid answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. I already kind of talked about mine. Just like Sally had to end up growing on me, but I think it was more of the fact that I saw that movie way before, like kind of young. So way before I was analyzing and kind of digging just like into things. So just like, she keeps screaming. That's like,
yeah. Yeah, why is she just screaming the whole time? But when you're older, you're like, oh, that's why.
Yes.
If I was there, I'd be screaming too, for sure.
Do you have any final girl tropes that you're tired of?
Final girl tropes that I'm tired of. I do think the innocent girl next door is kind of a tired trope. I like more complicated and nuanced characters. But I guess it's a final girl associated trope is like any kind of horror movie, especially paranormal ones, where the final girl is like, hey, this is happening, and nobody believes her. That drives me crazy. Like, I didn't see that. I didn't hear anything. What are you talking about? The gaslighting is insane, and I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. Like, please put reasonable characters into your stories. Please. Reasonable people who will at least give enough of a shit for 5 minutes to say, you know what? You're generally not hallucinating things. Maybe I should listen to you. It drives me crazy.
It's like, yeah, maybe. And she's not a final girl, but it's what I appreciated about the original Omen, which came out in 1976. Whenever the wife was like to her husband, our son's cuckoo. Like, there was something wrong with him. And he wasn't like, oh, you're crazy. So, like, he actually just like took her seriously and started investing. Granted, he kind of started the whole situation to begin with. That's a whole other story.
But yeah, he didn't treat her badly. Or like another good example of somebody doing the right thing is Slumber Party Massacre 2. Are you familiar with that one?
Yes, a driller killer with a killer guitar.
Yes, I love that movie so much. Like, so much. And part of the reason I love it so much is she thinks she's going crazy, right? And the guys in the movie are kind of like, oh, okay, crazy girl. But her friends believe her. They believe her from the beginning. They take her seriously. They check the garbage compactor to make sure there's not a person in it. You know, like, they really listen to her and believe her. And that's part of why I love it so much, because my friends would listen to me and believe me. I don't know why all of these characters are written like to be surrounded by assholes. I don't believe them, because like, we should just like believe our friends.
Kick gaslighting to the curb.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Reasonable characters.
Yes. Now, if you could give one final girl a different ending, or if any, who would it be and why?
Most final girls, I'm pretty happy with their ending, right? They usually get away. They go on to live their lives happily. I mean, minus the ones who get a bunch of sequels and have to deal with that shit for longer. But
yeah,
I don't know if you count her as a final girl. There, I could potentially debate that she's not, but Christine from Drag Me to Hell. I don't know if she counts as a final girl because of the ending, and I really wish she could get a different ending because, like I said already 5 times, morally ambiguous characters. She's a character that makes mistakes. She has her priorities wrong. She's not a perfect person. Does that mean she deserves to have some demonic woman vomit bugs into her mouth? No. Okay. So I still think she deserves to get out at the end, and she doesn't. And it pisses me off. So
I would say she's the final girl up until the end.
up until the train tracks.
She almost made it. That ending got me the first time I saw it because whenever he pulled out the button instead of the quarter, I was like, oh no. I was just like screaming at the TV.
So yeah, I would change that ending and make her an official final girl because I do think she deserves to make it. She's just trying to live her life, pay her bills, you know?
Yeah, she got the position and everything. She was gonna get engaged to like her boyfriend. It's like her life was finally gonna get going the way she wanted, and then she gets dragged to hell for turning one little old lady down, which is sad. I wouldn't want to turn her down, but she is just trying to do her best. Yeah, that's really all we can do. Probably the final girl that I would give a different ending is Alice, because she made it in Friday the 13th, the first one, 1980, but then the second one she gets her head chopped off.
Yeah, that sucks.
Like she goes through all that and then she ends up dying. It's like, no, just like I would have just not had her in the second one, and then we could have dealt with the ending where she survives. So
yeah, just cut that part out and pretend, because I agree 100%. She didn't deserve that.
No, she didn't. Okay. So now we're going to do the retro lightning round, but it's going to. I did it last time I had you on, but it's going to be a little different. It's just going to be short answers. The first answer that comes to your head, and that's it. First one, final girl that you trust in real life.
A final girl I would trust in real life is Gail Weathers. Listen, she gets shit done. She knows what she's talking about, and she always survives.
Final girl you'd never want to be trapped in a house with, if any.
Sienna Shaw. I will go nowhere near Art the Clown. Fuck that. Nowhere. Everybody who loves Sienna dies. I am uninterested.
Like that. Yeah, bye, Sienna. Just like you seem like a nice person, but
sorry, girl. Bye.
The best turn the tables moment for a final girl.
Okay, so I don't have a lot of nice things to say usually about the new Halloween movies in 2018. Okay, I usually don't, because I'm picky and maybe kind of a bitch. But when Lori was ready for Michael Myers, she had everything set up. She was like prepared when he showed up, and she started hitting all of her switches or whatever she was doing. That was a great turn the tables moment. I loved that for her.
Good. That was a great moment.
It was.
I know you mentioned Max from The Final Girls as a movie and a performance that you feel deserves more credit. My retro lightning round question here is just one final girl performance you think deserves more credit. Is she going to be your answer here, or do you have a different one?
I have a new answer. I have another. Okay. Another character that I don't think is actually credited as a final girl often, but deserves to be, is Elvira. I don't think she gets enough credit for that, because if you watch Mistress of the Dark, she is like fighting her scary demonic uncle. She's like fighting with the townspeople who want to burn her at the stake. They even tried to lock up her dog and burn her dog. I mean, she went through a lot in that movie, and she made it out on top. So I think she's a really great final girl that isn't credited enough as a final girl.
And the last retro lightning round question. If you could create a new final girl today, what would her overall vibe be?
I watched The Haunting recently, and I couldn't get over how much I loved Theo. She's funny. She's interesting. She's super caring. She's great bisexual representation, which we don't get enough of. I would love to write like a modern kind of Theo character, but where instead of the girl, there's a little bit of underlying romance there between Theo and Nell, right? I'm not the only one who sees that. There's always some underlying romance. So I would kind of create a modern Theo that actually gets the girl in the end. That's the final girl I want.
Great answer. Yes. Yes, love it. Now, as we wrap up, here are some of the things that I'm taking from this conversation. A final girl is definitely more than just a story function. She's more than just a girl that survives and makes it to the end. She also is more than a trope, but the trope evolves because with each new decade and new era, our fears evolve. We have new fears, new anxieties from the era that we're in. So also, final girls are so empowering, but sometimes they can have those limitations, like I said, those morally ambiguous kinds of limitations, depending on how she's written. And they are memorable because they feel like us. They feel like people. And that's overall just I feel what a final girl is all about.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I think we really went over so many important factors when talking about a final girl. Like, I really meant it when I said this is one of my favorite subjects. I think the evolution of final girls is so fascinating, and I really do like look forward to like what is going to happen next with the final girl trope. Like, what are we going to see next?
Yeah, that's like my favorite thing about horror is that even though I have a very specific set of eras I like to talk about, I love seeing like how things evolve, comparing like what is coming out now to the horrors of the 70s, like through the 2010s, just like all those eras. It's like I love seeing how tropes evolve. I love seeing how I am looking forward to seeing how the final girl evolves as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I really feel like horror in general is a really good reflection of what's happening like in our society, like politically and just like on a cultural level. Like so much of the 80s was like a direct response to like Reagan era economics. So I'm really interested to see. I already feel like we're starting to see some like really cool stuff trickle out based on like recent like political stuff in the US, but I'm really excited to see like what continues to come out because I do think that like storytelling is so important and part of why I love horror so much.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would love to see more of is pandemic era horror. I think that's a time that some people might be like, oh, it's just like too soon, but I would love to see more horror movies set with the pandemic as a background, just the horrors of that.
I really agree with you because like that was such a like strange time period and I feel like we all moved on from it like really fast. And I think I don't know about you, but I feel like I haven't fully processed all of that yet. So maybe everybody's just kind of taking their time with processing what happened because it was a very strange time for sure.
I mean, just off the top of my head, I know this is a bit of a tangent here, but off the top of my head, I could think of the movie Host, which came out in 2020, the Zoom horror movie. I love that
movie.
That is a great movie. And I'm thinking about also the movie Sick, which I don't remember. I think that came out in 2021. It's on Peacock. It was written by the same guy who wrote Scream. There's some very familiar like vibes as far as the opening goes. And then I also think of Ari Aster's Eddington, which I think came out just last year. And that's a movie that's very polarizing as far as the pandemic goes. That could be a whole other conversation there.
Oh, we could do a whole session just on that movie because it was so... Oh, that movie was a lot. And my general feeling when I was done with it was just like sad about all of it. Just sad about what happened, sad about the story, just about all of it.
Yep. Ari Aster just has this way of making trauma scary. That's his
for sure.
thing. I come out of all his movies feeling more depressed than when I went into them.
Yeah, you have to prepare for his films.
Yes.
You really, like, emotionally prepare.
Yes. Just be as happy as you can be before you watch any of his movies would really be my advice. So I'm going to speak directly to everybody who is watching this, so who I like to call my terror tribe. I want you in the comments. Shane and I have talked a lot just about final girls and the final girl trope and final girl moments. What I would like for you to do is drop your most complex final girl pick in the comments. The final girl that you think has those layers. So, Shane, thank you so much for coming on again to talk about final girls with me. This is a really awesome conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me again. Anytime you call, I will show up. I have so much fun doing these. I love talking about final girls and about movies in general with you. So thank you for having me, and hopefully I'll be back again soon.
So I'm going, Shane, come on.
I'll be there.
And before we sign off officially, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on this big worldwide interwebs?
Okay, I am on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. My YouTube is not updated, so don't expect anything fancy there. But Instagram is where I'm most active. I do reviews. I do pillow talks about characters that I like. I do a lot of horror fashion, some closet cosplays. You can find me there at UR for your fave, FAV, final girl. No I, 2 R's. I don't know a better way to like write it out for people without making it complicated. So your fave final girl on Instagram. That's where you can find me.
All right. And definitely, if you haven't already followed her on Instagram, do so. If you're more of a TikTok person, follow her there. But I'm more of a big Instagram person. And she does, like I said, she posts her favorite outfits. She does like those kind of closet cosplays. That's a tongue twister. And I love her pillow talks because it's just like you're talking movies with your friend. That's what I love about it.
Thank you so much for the kind words. That's the whole point of it. Just, I love, watching a movie and then laying down and talking with somebody about like how I feel about it. And that's exactly what it is.
Yep. It's pillow talks that do not make you fall asleep. So
thank you.
All right, everybody, class is dismissed for now, but I will see you on the next episode of Retro Horror School Talks. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Retro Horror School Talks. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with anybody that you think would enjoy just a very awesome, relaxed, laid-back conversation about horror. And if you're curious about past episodes of Retro Horror School Talks, I will be throwing the link up to them somewhere.